Well, as a child, I always went to Mass and was a Catholic, and when I left for college to study engineering in Galway, I continued to practice my faith, but I suppose you could say I never really had a personal relationship with God. It was just a cultural part of my life. So while I went to Mass and continued to say the odd little prayer every now and again, I hadn't really examined my faith as an adult. Then when I was about 22, my brother went to Cambodia to work as an engineer for a year and a half. And I think the culture shock, seeing a different society, that was the time when the Celtic Tiger was at its height in Ireland. We're pretty much kind of obsessed with economic success, shall we say. And he saw a whole different life in Cambodia, full of poverty and simplicity. And I think it had a profound effect on him. And so he brought back some books that he had read himself out there. So I think that he had a little bit of a spiritual experience or conversion while he was in Cambodia. And he brought them back to us, myself and my twin brother, kind of tentatively wondering what would these guys think of the older brother trying to force religion on them, if you like. But they were very good books, and one was Henry Nouwen and a meditation on the road to Emmaus, and the whole idea of going through life and sensing a sense of loss and looking for something that we don't have. And I think in that moment, when I was reading that book, God somehow touched my heart, and I felt for the first time that He really existed and loved me and had a plan for my life, I suppose. So I began from that moment on to really take my faith more seriously and to give time to prayer and to try, if possible, to go to Mass even on a daily basis. And I had just left, I just finished my engineering, civil engineering. I studied in NUIG. I had just left and gone to study in Belfast in Queens. And so I met a lot of prayer groups, guys in prayer groups up there, and kind of my social circle changed, if you like, and I became involved in going to U2000 groups and going to retreats. And so that continued on for maybe about 3 or 4 years, but over that time I felt a strong calling towards the priesthood. And I was wondering, when I finished my studies and got a job, it was still there. So I got a job and came back to Galway, to the university, to teach, and yet the desire to become a priest had grown stronger in that time, and I wanted to talk to someone about that. So I went to the chaplain in UCG, as it was called at the time, and he said, well, being a priest is a bit like being an engineer. There are different types. He said, you know, you've got your industrial engineer, your civil engineer, And when I went in and spoke to him, actually, there was a lovely message on the calendar. It said, man builds for a century, but God builds for eternity. And I felt that that was God's message to me that day as an engineer, that look, you can give your life to engineering, you can build for a century, but I want you to build for eternity, you know. And that was before the priest even came in to talk to me. That was just his calendar and the little message on the desk. So I chatted to Father Dermot for a while, and he said, well, have you ever thought about religious priesthood, you know? And he kind of described what that might involve, living in community, maybe more freedom to preach and to teach, and less pastoral engagements, I suppose. And the more I thought about it, the more I thought that that would be the type of vocation that would suit me better. Obviously, I prayed about it and decided to talk to a few priests that were religious priests. So he put me in contact with a priest called Father John O'Reilly down in the Claddagh, really nice man. And that's when I first met the Dominicans. So I had been going to the Claddagh church. I just thought maybe they were a diocesan priest, regular church. So I went down to talk to Father John, and he told me his whole life story. And the more he talked, the more I felt that this was the place and this was the order that I was meant to join. I had been in the Legion of Mary, so I had a kind of a devotion to the Rosary already. There seemed to be a Marian aspect to the Dominicans, but also the possibility to teach maybe in a university, and I had been teaching, so that appealed to me, and I liked teaching. Also the idea of preaching I found very appealing. So all in all, yeah, I met them in Galway in the Claddagh, and yeah, the rest is history, as they say.